Hello all, and thank you for tuning in. My name is Rebecca, and today we will be discussing a topic that often finds itself in the middle of many debates. This topic can lead to many arguments, kind of like politics, so it should be avoided in casual conversations. First, let me ask a question. Do you believe disciplining children should be performed the same way by all parents? If you answered no, your opinion is the same as most people. In today's society, one topic that has become very controversial is how children should be disciplined. We're going to start with defining what discipline is, what type of behavior is acceptable, what type is not acceptable, and pros and cons of corporal punishment. Many people debate whether physical punishment like spanking or swatting is appropriate or not. There is no definite answer. However, there are both positive and negative effects to physical punishment. Our responsibility as parents is to help our children become self-reliant, respectful, and self-controlled. To elaborate further, discipline teaches a child to follow rules. Effective discipline utilizes many different tools like positive reinforcement, modeling, and a loving and supporting family. Sometimes punishments are also an effective tool, but that doesn't mean that good discipline is mostly about punishment. Parents come across barriers when trying to teach good behavior. However, when utilizing spanking as a form of punishment, this must be the last resort. One must have exhausted all other forms of discipline first. Most of the concerns that are associated with the use of corporal punishment occur from excessive use. There are children who prefer to test the limits of the adults around them as a way to acknowledge what structures are suitable. Some children typically respond in severe circumstances to a physical consequence that is relevant for the behavior. Children make better choices in regards to their actions and behavior when they are aware of the consequences for misbehaving. Corporal punishments creates a shocking circumstance for the child, which helps them to remember that their choices can create harm in some way. The use of corporal punishment instills a level of respect in kids who struggle to interact with authority figures. Corporal punishment establishes a boundary for children, teaching them who is in charge and what the rules are at the time. Essentially, this can help to lay the groundwork for some children to understand the moments where they are being asked to listen as opposed to the moments where they are allowed their freedom of making their own personal choices. On the contrary, corporal punishment can inflict long-term harm both physically and mentally. If corporal punishment is used inappropriately, it is likely to result in the child feeling guilty or shameful, which would not have been associated with the behaviors that is being corrected. The possibility of this outcome is based on a moment of anger and can severely limit the effectiveness of the discipline. This basically renders the action useless if done incorrectly. This can produce a circumstance of fear for the child. Thus, there is a difference between discipline and abuse with corporal punishment. There are several styles of parenting in which spanking can be utilized effectively. One type is an authoritative parent, which has standards and consequences and is affectionate towards their child. This type of parent allows more flexibility and a collaborative problem solving when dealing with behavioral changes. Another form is an authoritarian parent, which has clear expectations and consequences but shows little affection toward their child. This type of parent may say something like, "Because I'm the parent, that's why." This is an ineffective form of parenting. There is also a permissive parent. This type of parent shows a lot of affection towards their child but provides little discipline. This type of parenting is an ineffective form of parenting. There are different discipline techniques to utilize. However, in order to choose which one to use will depend on the type of inappropriate behavior being displayed by the child. It also depends on the child's age, temperament, and your personal parenting style. One of the techniques is acknowledging good behavior, which is typically used to uplift your child's spirit, ensuring they will continue to keep up the good work. A good example of this would be to commend the child when they are displaying the behavior you have been seeking. There's also natural consequences and logical consequences, which are very similar to one another, except logical consequences involves describing to your child what the repercussions will be for unacceptable behavior. Another technique would be taking away privileges. There isn't always a logical or natural consequence for a bad behavior. Therefore, in this case, the consequence for unacceptable behavior may result in taking away a privilege such as television, any electronics, or any desired activity. Lastly, timeouts is another discipline technique, which works best if you know exactly what the child has done wrong or if you simply need a break from the child's behavior. In conclusion, to follow are the key points of what was discussed. I have defined what is discipline, the type of acceptable and unacceptable behaviors, also the pros and cons of corporal punishment. When utilizing the key factors mentioned, spanking a child can be a successful form of discipline. This must be done in a circumstance that requires such a strong consequence, as long as this action is done as a last resort and not as a primary form of discipline. It should be viewed as an appropriate form. It is important to follow through with the actions, as any technique can fail if the consequences are not enforced consistently. With all that has been discussed, I believe it should be very apparent that spanking a child can be an appropriate form of discipline when utilized correctly. Thank you.